You know what's really cool? Whinging, whining, and swearing. When some fans don't love an angle you've put together. Nothing screams King of the Hill quite like breaking kayfabe by dropping an hour-long interview about the fakery of wrestling on the WWE YouTube page, moaning that not everyone in the universe loves your booking, and then repeating said tantrum on utter trash like the Flagrant podcast. Oh, and Pat McAfee's show as well. Triple H clearly knew this would be the epitome of cool, a level of awesome most mere mortals could never reach. Shedding soft boy tears because someone on Twitter said the road to WrestleMania has been a bit messy, a bit lackluster, which, I mean, come on, it was a bit. The week leading up to this year's WrestleMania was unsurprisingly a big one for the WWE, it always is. With go-home shows that needed to hype up the event, the Hall of Fame, a big NXT show, and Tony Hinchcliffe, an alleged comedian who some of us would just love to see go to one of Puerto Rico's more dangerous areas and be dealt with so we don't have to see him with Joe Rogan's dick in his mouth or us for work he didn't deserve in the first place. Now, WWE did put some effort into hyping up WrestleMania 41 on Raw and SmackDown in the week leading up to the show, as they should have, of course. You know where they didn't do such a tip-top job? The out-of-kayfabe interview some stars have given. So obviously, Triple knows to kick things off. Upset that the internet wrestling crowd, a truly meaningless aspect of the fandom, they'll watch no matter what happens. They sometimes don't love his shows. Who cares? This guy is paid millions of dollars to run the biggest wrestling show in the world. He's by all accounts well liked by most of the talent he works with, and he has received a fair bit of critical praise since taking over from Vince McMahon. Before McMahon was persona non grata due to his love of, fudge, allegedly. He popped up on the Pat McAfee show. He was asked what he thought of fans online roasting his booking. And obviously McMahon, with his love of toilet humour, clumsy big men, goofball characters, and changing up scripts on the fly, got a lot of flack from the Smark world for years. Did Vince McMahon get upset? Did he throw a fit? Did he suggest fans were mistreating him and hurting his all-too-precious feelings? No. He said he didn't care. He didn't pay attention to the IWC at all, instead focusing on what he believed would be the most commercially successful path for his show. Now, he might not have always succeeded in finding that objective, especially in the closing stretch of his run there, but his mindset made perfect sense, and he seems like the boss, unflinching. And here's Triple H multiple times bemoaning the treatment some fans are giving him. Frankly, as a not quite fully grown man once said,
"Go cry me a river."
Triple Hurt has disgraced himself, and it only gets better. The Click, widely regarded as some of the biggest jerks in wrestling history, which is really saying something, had themselves a little victory dance of sorts. Well, 4 of the 5 of them did, at the Hall of Fame this weekend. Shawn Michaels, one of the greatest wrestlers ever, bell to bell that is, no one look at the impact he had on ticket sales, gave a very nice speech about Triple H. Obviously, the two have been pals for decades. It clearly means a lot to old HBK to be inducting his pal. And when the camera cut to Road Dogg in the audience, it really hit you how the inmates are now running the asylum. DX are large and in charge of the WWE in 2025. Triple H comes out, onto the stage that is, we'll get to the closet in a second, and kisses HBK on the mouth. Okay, there it is. There's the closet moment. What did the big man used to say? Let's see.
There's a lot of bad things I am, but lingual's not one of them.
Very odd moment, frankly. A hug or whatever between old friends, fair enough. But come on now, fellas, there's a limit. Or could it be that we're getting up to the part where HBK says,
"I wish I knew how to quit you.
Then why don't you?
Now Triple Nose, fresh off those podcasts, homaged a fellow member of the Turbo Mega Nose community when his speech at the Hall of Fame just never ended, much like Adrian Brody's speech for winning Best AI Enhanced Actor at the Oscars for The Brutalist. An incredibly dull film, by the way, 4 hours. Felt like 4 days. I never needed to see Adrian Brody receive 1 handjob, yet alone 2, and the less said about what Guy Pearce does to him in the 3rd act of the film, the better. You know, I try and be cultured and sophisticated. I balance it out. I watch the trash wrestling, but then I watch some artsy-fartsy movies. And that's what I got for my efforts. Unbelievable. Anyways, Triple Homo brought up jolly old Vince McMahon. Look, obviously these two are close. They worked together for decades. They're family as well, of course. It's understandable why the game would want to address him. That being said, there was a PR person in the back who just had a heart attack when this happened. Maybe Vince McMahon will be cleared of those rather strange accusations against him. Maybe he'll manage to hush it up, all out of court completely, no worries, whatever. Regardless, this was playing with fire, what the game did. And it was good, it was a nice comment. You know, it's very tasteful, respectful. What, you think I'm going to throw a fit and demand Triple H get cancelled for this? No way. He had every right to say what he said. That being said, the insipid heroes of wrestling journalism, like Blowjob Bethel, an illiterate slop merchant loser putting out slop for sloppy excrement scoops, the worst wrestling site in the world, garbage trash. By garbage trash writers, they may well be AI, I don't know. And I'd say garbage editors, but one look at their pathetic work will tell you they clearly don't have any editors. Shawn Tuss-Fap, and all these other cucks. I can't believe I'm using that word, how childish, it's not 2017 anymore, will leap to this, to try and turn social media against Triple H for worshipping an alleged grapeist. Alleged. Not that I'm saying Triple H does worship Vince McMahon, or indeed that Vince McMahon is guilty. To be honest, I'm quite doubtful of both of those concepts, but that's a video for a different time. My point is, unfortunately, in this age of politically correct, sterile trash we live in, where free speech is becoming a thing of the past, this was bad PR heading into WrestleMania, and it was far from the only example. Roman Reigns, a happily married father of 5, cosplayed as a member of the LGBTQASHFUVHDJNS community. Did I miss any there? For Vanity Fair recently. At least, I assume that's what he was doing. Mini shorts. Mini shorts on a man who clearly took the time to either wax or shave the majority of his legs, lounging seductively in a pink top. Oh my goodness. And it gets worse. What even is this? He's at the beach, but he's wearing an absurdly tight blazer, no shirt, and then just a towel. There's a hint of underwear, maybe? Let me tell you, no one dresses like that. That is absurd. It's like he went out to a dinner party by the sea the night before, was drugged, he drank too much sangria, there were roofies in it, and by the time he woke up, the druggers had had their way with him and then some. And this was all that was left of his outfit after the whole sordid ordeal. Anyways, Roman Reigns is a Donald Trump fan. I never needed to know that, and neither did you. It shouldn't be a huge deal, of course, for those who still believe that democracy is real. You can vote for whoever you want, no sweat. And hey, look, if you want to vote for the reality TV guy, most of his wealth seemingly is fake. He seems a little too lustful towards his own daughter, if you ask me, and who immediately backtracked on lower prices in the States, something he promised in the voting, who cares, and who seems more concerned with Israel and Greenland and potential war with China quite soon, and the well-being of his own country, be my guest. Because after the 4 years before him, I can understand why none of that sounds as bad as it should. I get it, I totally understand. Especially when, with Joe Biden out of the way, his brain being Swiss cheese and all that, with the competition in Joe Biden's place, the only other option, with a chance of winning, because it's a two-party system, let's be real, the only other option was an alcoholic, aging, severely aging, call girl, with no policies, and a whole lot of needless laughter.
Okay.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I can see it. It's a shame when these are the options you get to vote for. But hey, look, I'm not judging America. The UK is considerably worse. No hate here, none at all. Anyways, Reigns mentioned supporting Trump and listed some reasons. I don't think they were the most interesting reasons he could have gone with, such as Trump's entertainment and business experience, okay. And he even tried lightly rationalizing the endless feuds and blow-ups. Orange man bad, ooh, seems to have going on all the time. Real-life Joe Anaway, or however you say his surname, can vote for whoever he wants. He can talk about it to whoever he wants. But think logically, with how people carry on these days and how triggered the masses get over every little thing, PR-wise, would it have killed the OTC to keep this to himself? This doesn't just go for Roman Reigns or wrestlers. This goes for all entertainers, just to be clear. And it goes for all political viewpoints and ideas. You're entertainers, you're not game changers. Enjoy the money and the thrill of the crowd and then go home and shut up. Given much of this interview was pretty much written like a puff piece, it's utterly bizarre to me that they feminized poor Reigns in the photo shoot and then let him a little too loose with his comments here as well. And the poor PR choices train just keeps on rolling, with good old John Cena himself. Big Match John is tight with Vince McMahon in real life. Everyone knows that. They worked together for years. Cena was McMahon's golden boy. They've been spotted going to steak dinners together over the years. That's cool. Nothing wrong with that. But Cena recently went ahead and dropped an absolute doozy, talking about how much he loves Vince McMahon, something he droned on about last year as well. There's nothing weird about it. I'm not going to make any gay jokes about it like with Triple H and Shawn Michaels. It's fine he's pals with the guy. And it makes sense. Vince McMahon put a lot of stock into John Cena. He made him a huge star. On top of that, they get on well. They see eye to eye on a variety of topics, supposedly. Good. Nice. John Cena is the son Vince McMahon wished he'd had. No offense to Shane McMahon or Triple H. It's fine he's pals with the guy, but why is Cena gushing about him on the week of WrestleMania when all eyes are on him? He's the headliner of Night 2, which means he's the actual headliner. Just avoid the topic of Vince McMahon altogether if you can. Let's see. Oh, it gets much worse from here on out. Those things were just opinions. People should be able to express them, just to be clear. In a sane world, you could. But we're not in a sane world. Let's see. It gets much worse here. The general Joe Roganization of WWE in recent weeks. Andrew Scholes, Bert Kreischer, I don't even care how he pronounces it, Tony Hinchcliffe. These goobers can absolutely just stick their heads in the sand and stay there. I remember a time, it was very long ago, where to be a prominent comedian, you had to be funny. It's kind of in the word comedian, comedy, you know. Back in the 2010s, Amy Schumer showed that's not always the case. In her case, she wasn't friends with Joe Rogan, just being a woman. A boring, obnoxious, unsightly woman. Talking about sucking dick was enough to get a platform, and it led to just dreadful movies like Trainwreck, where we're meant to believe a millionaire doctor for some basketball team, I assume it was the Knicks, the film was set in New York, would go for Amy Schumer. Yeah, good. Yeah, that would happen. Great. Now in the 2020s, Amy Schumer, she's not really in fashion anymore. The three goobers I just mentioned have shown that being friends with Joe Rogan is all it takes now. Joe Rogan, Mr. Inadvertent Meme himself. Overrated UFC commentator, frankly. Overrated podcaster. Unwatchable stand-up comedian. Giving his similarly talentless pals a platform they don't deserve to peddle their so-called humour if you feel like being generous. Here's a newsflash. Being an edgelord doesn't guarantee that you'll be funny. Being based, put some air quote marks around that word, that too does not mean you're guaranteed to be funny. Regardless of how edgy or soft you are, how based or how woke that you are, the same policy applies. Here it is. Learn some setups and some punchlines. Do some bits. Do some anecdotes. Have a beginning, middle, and end. And then get back to us. Okay, good. Yeah. None of this crap I've just rambled on about, is a good look for any promotion. Road to WrestleMania, usually the time of the year ratings go way up for a little while. Around a 35% drop is what's actually happened of late on the ratings front. Jasmine Nix, who's that, I hear you ask? Good question. Some thought from NXT to satisfy Shawn Michaels' utterly relentless goonery, apparently. Stumbling around with her loudmouth moron boyfriend, some cocksucking wannabe never was, from goofy little game and reality shows or something, apparently. And these two dweebs, who clearly just think they're so cool, bro, with almost no one on earth knowing who they are despite them both being on TV, decide to make fun of some poor disabled guy on their worthless live stream only an absolute loser with no life would have been watching. And to be clear, I only found out about this when I looked into the endless bad PR WWE has gotten of late. I did not watch it properly, thank you.
What up, big man? Oh my God, he just growled at me. Oh my God, he just growled at me. He just growled at me. He just growled at me like a dog.
If I ever willingly watch people like that properly in full, not just the 8 to 12 second footage that got them some bad press, if I watch the whole thing willingly, you listening to this video, whether you like this video or not, if you ever see me in person, you have permission to just shoot me dead, because I'll deserve it in that scenario. Stephanie McMahon, kind of to wrestling what Chris Weidman was to Anderson Silva's leg, has a new show. And, I won't be watching it. It doesn't matter who the guest is. Stephanie McMahon, whose move into WWF Creative just happened to coincide with the promotion's long-term decline starting in 2001 after she moved in late 2000. Coincidence, I'm sure. Who embarrassed what a whole generation of wrestlers during the 2010s. I think she can just go and do one, frankly. She had Dana White on, and she said, to Dana White, she said she had a no douchebags policy.
Yeah, that's rule number 1 is have fun. Rule number 2 is no douchebags. That was rule number 1.
You gotta have douchebags.
No.
With Dana White on, the wife beating, or wife brawling, alright, the wife struck first will be reasonable. Penny pinching, cheapskate, bottom for John Jones, the man who spends more time trashing Francis Ngannou than promoting his own shows half the time, who has infected the UFC with
the power slap table is rising.
With Nina Drama, some stupid wall-ready playboy whore industry plant who knows about as much about MMA as Stephanie McMahon knows about actually earning things in life. Who is the latest to bend over for Saudi Arabia? Dana White in the UFC, that is, not Stephanie McMahon. And who has made Prime and Bud Light the mascots of UFC. Yeah, that guy. No douchebags, okay, sure. And finally, Nick Khan. Oh boy, this guy, who has had a lot of business success with the WWE since joining, in fairness to him, he's clearly got a very, very savvy mind for this kind of thing. He gave an utterly bizarre take in a recent interview. Old Nick, no relation to Tony, far as we're aware anyway, revealed that he considers WWE the underdog. The Rocky Balboa. WWE, frankly, in reality, is the Yankees in the late 90s. They're the Celtics under Bill Russell's leadership. They're Conor McGregor at UFC 205. They're Thanos, the big boys, and this is not a criticism, it's actually a compliment. They are the top of the professional wrestling world, and they're 100 miles ahead of everyone else. They are the antithesis of the underdog. When TNA started making a comeback last year and Hendry took off as their main guy, right, those were underdog moments. TNA is the underdog, sure. AEW is in decline right now, thanks to Jonathan Moxley, among many other problems. Despite their big budget, they are not keeping up with WWE. Whenever they go head-to-head with the TKO wrestling branch, they are the underdog and they lose. Just because some smarks online don't like the WWE style and often seem to go in with low expectations and they're posting on Reddit, oh, I have no faith in this show, does not make WWE an underdog. A lot of casual fans won't even really know what AEW and TNA are, to put it bluntly, whereas everyone, wrestling fan or not, knows full well what WWE is. Khan seemed kinda delusional here. With an inexplicable chip on his shoulder despite his immense success in a major franchise, and then he had the gall to say WWE benches no one. Rosters are big. Shows are tight. Creative's not always going to have something for everyone. But don't act like there aren't people on the bench right now. Omos, one of Vince McMahon's last pet projects, has done absolutely nothing of note in the WWE at the time of this video being recorded in well over a year. He went on a quick excursion to Pro Wrestling Noah in Japan, where he was very over, only for that to be cut short and him brought back home to resume doing nothing. Hikuleo, New Japan wanted this guy to be their next big foreigner. Japan has a long history of big Western monsters doing well in the wrestling world. He opted to jump ship to the WWE last year, fair enough, with many expecting him to get involved, at the time, in the Bloodline Civil War angle. With him involved, Tonga Loa could stay outside of the ring, which would be for the best for everyone, especially Tonga Loa himself. However, Hikuleo is yet to even appear on NXT. The Street Profits only just very recently made clear their frustration with missing out on WrestleMania. Again, these things happen, it's how it goes, but don't pretend that they don't. Essentially, WWE came into WrestleMania this year with a little bit of the old egg on their face. Obviously, it was not the fault of most of the talent involved with the show, but enough big names took bad PR directions that it was not a good start to what is meant to be the biggest, most beloved time of year for them. On top of that, the build to this year's Mania, at the risk of making Triple Hurt shed another tear or three, has been mid. A mess, in fact, and with that in mind, Night 1. Gunther versus Jey Uso, alright. Go to a live WWE show, Jey Uso is working. Fans simply cannot get enough of Jey Uso. They love that whole yeet thing. They've enjoyed his surprisingly lengthy character arc over the course of this decade, from beaten down underdog to dangerous henchman to breakaway babyface. Sure, his work rate's bad and the whole yeet thing is not for everyone. And for many more jaded fans or smarkier fans, like, say, I don't know, grumpy Brits with failing hobbyist YouTube channels who still watch wrestling at their age, after a just plain horrible 9 to 6 working day shift at the office, not even 9 to 5, bloody hell. These types of fans, like myself, don't get into the whole Jey Uso thing. I've done videos on this, and they've ranged from trolling to more genuine analysis, but who cares? This guy moves merchandise. His segments tend to rate relatively well. He gets a good pop whenever his music hits. From a business perspective, you can see why WWE would at least consider moving him up the card despite his flaws. This feud with Gunther seemed a bit dragged out, played out. The pair don't have much chemistry in the ring. We just saw Jey Uso lose to the ring general at Saturday night's main event. But then, with just a few weeks to go before WrestleMania on Raw, with Jey Uso buddies with his brother Jimmy again, Gunther bashed Jimmy Uso to a bloody pulp as a restrained main event Jey was forced to watch. It was visceral, brutal. Jimmy Uso bled everywhere. Gunther was a force of evil. The dramatic value of this feud suddenly, out of nowhere, skyrocketed. The next week, Jey Uso cuts a genuinely very good, very powerful promo on what Gunther did to his brother. Even Gunther looks kind of guilty. He knows it was too far. It went against his principles as a proper, old-fashioned wrestler. Jey Uso warns Gunther about the man he's pushed him into becoming. WrestleMania is gonna get ugly. Great. Those two segments made this match must-see, even for the haters such as myself. And after all that heat, all we got was a bloodless, lifeless, very standard, very tidy 16 or so minute match where Gunther tapped out almost immediately to a sleeper hold in a strange low-impact homage to his excellent second match with Ilya Dragunov back in NXT, something that was much better than this match. The moment afterwards where the Uso boys celebrated together was very nice, but this match was a comical letdown that made the blood feud this had become seem completely pointless. Gonna throw some armchair booking at you here. Let's see, this is how it should have gone, alright? Listen to this. Jey Uso enters first. He does that big entrance like he did. Gunther makes his way to the ring next. Uso immediately launches an attack on him, bringing the fight to him right off the bat. He's not afraid. He wants to teach this big Austrian bully a lesson. Gunther fights back. He's probably throwing one of his 6,000 chops for the match. But he is visibly unsettled by the aggressive pace Uso has set. He overpowers Uso time and again, but never gets the better of him, never gets the pinfall. And the former right-hand man keeps coming back. He's scrappy as ever, throwing himself recklessly into his need to avenge his brother and prove he can beat Gunther no matter what. It's stiff, it's angry. Maybe one or even both of them played. It's a grudge match. It's about more than just the title now. This is personal. This is real hatred. Fed up, Gunther becomes a total hypocrite. He goes against his very own old-fashioned wrestling fundamental principles, and he deliberately sets up a ref bump so he can call out Ludwig Jubber to give him a hand. The duo, these bullies, put a beating on Jey Uso until Jimmy Uso comes charging out. Seen for the first time since the Gunther beating, this is his return. He charges into the ring and he takes out Jubber immediately. Jey Uso then makes a comeback, super kicks Gunther into a crumpled heap, and remembering what Gunther did to him and his brother, chokes him out for the victory. Jimmy Uso grabs the world title belt and hands it to his brother. They hug, and everyone then yeets together. Jey Uso has taken Gunther to the Uso penitentiary and reminded everyone just how dangerous he can be, while his brother actually helps out beyond being an unlucky heat builder the other week. Call me crazy, call me a merc, but that kind of booking sounds like a much more satisfying payoff to this feud. It's ultimately the same ending, with Jey Uso getting his feel-good win, but you have a match that actually fits the story that was being told in the weeks prior. Instead, for the second year running, one of Gunther's 1 or 2 annual jobs came at WrestleMania against a lovable mid-carder in a serviceable but not exactly spectacular WrestleMania match. Alright, let's just skip ahead a bit. Charlotte Flair versus Tiffany Stratton, right. Question, was it a shoot? Was it a work? These are the questions many have asked concerning the segments between these two leading up to this show. Look at it this way. After the in-ring segment, allegedly moderated by Wade Barrett, did you see him doing any moderating? There are Redditors who work harder than that for no money. Unbelievable. Anyway, Charlotte Flair has gone through a very rough period in her life. Career-threatening knee injury left her on the shelf more than a year. She's a jacked super athlete with a lot of high-impact jumps in her arsenal. This blown knee changes everything. Her marriage to Andrade El Jabalo falls apart, as marriages so often do these days, and by the time she returns to WWE, all people are really doing is noting she's had yet more cosmetic work during her time away. It was very noticeable. Now she wins the Royal Rumble, she's emotional, and on that night the fans seemed fairly happy for her, got a positive reaction. And it's a huge deal to come back from an injury like that. And then fans boo her to hell the night after. And they keep booing every week. Fans are tired, actually, of the 10-year Charlotte super push. That's quite upsetting. No one wants go-away heat. Better than no heat, of course, I guess, but still not ideal. So, as she so often seemingly allegedly has, according to the dirt sheets out there, Charlotte Flair rather cheekily goes into business for herself. Like that time she threw that belt at Becky Cringe. Here, though, she absolutely buries Tiffany Stratton in an awkward split-screen interview. Stratton, flabbergasted, green as spinach on a good day anyway, goes on a shoot rant about Flair burying new talent, completely going against the whole storyline up to that point, being about Stratton wanting to face Flair. The next week, Stratton pulls a similar stunt to what Flair did to her, absolutely rinsing Flair for her rather unfortunate trilogy of failed marriages. The Ross Geller of the WWE, if you will. and then bounces. So Flair's left with her figurative, dick in her hand, shouting nonsensically about Ludwig Kaiser sending her a direct message or something. I think that's the kids' way of saying they're getting hit on, because everything's done online these days. Man, modern life is sad. Many have suggested this was actually all a work. A worked shoot, if you will, to try and cash in on Flair's heat and give fans something a little different to get them talking, keep them on their toes. Hey, look, maybe. And credit to these two if true, because they were somewhat convincing as unprofessionals going totally off script. However, the go-home episode of SmackDown saw them be kept completely apart, in essence. No pull-apart brawl, no sequel to the shoot segment to try and drum up more heat. Just basic sit-down interview promos with Wade Barrett in separate locations where his appalling moderating skills would not have to be put to the test again. They were being kept apart. It's that simple. And then we get to the match. Stiff, awkward, clumsy, quite hard-hitting in fairness, but also often full of what appeared to be miscommunication. Flair often, especially in the closing stretch, even appeared to be sandbagging Stratton's offense, just a little bit. Along the way, she also busted up Stratton's face. Accidents happen. Wrestling is exceedingly dangerous and all that. But Stratton getting potatoed after those weird segments between them felt like a little more than just a coincidence. Many have suggested, have theorized, that Flair maybe was originally meant to win here, to finish her comeback story, and give Stratton a rematch to chase. Maybe she'd win Queen of the Ring, and they'd run this back at SummerSlam or something. If true, maybe the fan backlash and the bizarre promos led to Triple Nose's least favourite word taking place. After the show, Stratton gave another retcon promo, talking up Flair being her hero, and largely just pretending all of the bizarre personal stuff never happened. Something their video package before the match also did, funnily enough. It's nice for Stratton that she won. It's a big step to becoming SmackDown's main women's babyface, but this whole feud and match, regardless of how shot or worked it really was an unprofessional-looking mess to see unfold. And then we have the biggest match of the night, and the second biggest match of the whole weekend. CM Punk, in his participation trophy of a first main event appearance at WrestleMania, the main event equivalent of being an interim champion, versus Roman Reigns, a man who has been almost entirely stripped of everything that made him a big star this decade, and Zest Rollins, an agent of chaos slowly steering towards his 2021 and 2022 heel persona once more. This was easily the best match of night one, by an almost comically large margin. These three know how to put it together, and they were given over 30 minutes to do their thing and tell their story. Like you might expect if you watched the Punk vs. Rollins cage match earlier this year, this bout was a finisher festival. The curb stomp, the GTS, the spear, all kicked out of, rinse and repeat, stripped of that finisher mantle they're meant to hold. It's dramatic though, you see. Near falls nearly always pop these big crowds. You can see with that in mind why they do it, even though long term it's really not very helpful. Roman Reigns reminds us of the good old days when he was the powerhouse in the Shield, back when he seemed poised to be the next John Cena level babyface star, a top dog in the making, a big dog if you will, who wouldn't poison Stephanie McMahon with laxatives, fluff half his lines, and say utterly bizarre Looney Tunes nonsense.
You are a sniveling little suck-up sellout full of suffering succotash, son! I know, that was not easy to say.
Yeah, it wasn't easy to listen to either. Reigns absolutely levels Punk and Rollins through announcing tables. It's a nice bit of symbolism, actually, because you see in the Shield, they would do the triple powerbomb. Reigns was the main base, the main strong guy, but all three of them did the move together. Reigns doesn't need them. He does it himself. He puts Punk through a table. Rollins, who'd offered a bit of an alliance there, Reigns says, to hell with you and your stupid costume. He puts him through the other announced table. The Shield is very much dead and buried. Everyone has moved on. It's a clever bit of storytelling. It made Reigns look good, which is something he's rarely allowed to do these days for some reason. Because you see, in kayfabe, his life and his career have essentially been in limbo ever since he lost the gold to Cody Rhodes at last year's WrestleMania. He had the whole Solo Sikoa feud, and the fact that Sikoa has faded into undercard obscurity, into being Jacob Fatu's hype man, has made that whole feud look even worse for Reigns in hindsight. CM Punk embarrassed him at the Royal Rumble. Not that there was anything wrong with what Punk did in kayfabe, it was more than fair enough. Reigns is psychotically unreasonable in that regard. Rollins stumped his brains in shortly thereafter. He misses the Elimination Chamber. His trusty manager Paul Heyman has split loyalties with his ex-boyfriend CM Punk. And speaking of which, before we get to the end of the match, the biggest part of the show, let's just remember the feud. Seth Rollins has well-established beefs with both men. He's got feuds with both of them to take on. And then for some reason, Roman Reigns is very, very over the top, very personally affected, very crestfallen that CM Punk eliminated him at the Rumble. He looked heartbroken at the show. He's still bitter about it now in his promos. Obviously, he's been champ all decade until last year. It's been a while since he got into the Rumble. Maybe he forgot. It is every man for himself at the Royal Rumble. It's nothing personal to get eliminated. It's life sometimes. The solution to all that is to put these guys into a triple threat for the rights to Paul Heyman's ass. Hey, did you ever see American History X? Scum?
Chew 'em. Ow.
Deliverance?
He got a little pretty mouth, ain't he?
Right, well, Paul Heyman's there. He's rotund, bloated, calzone ass is on the line. Prone spread, shocked, locked, and ready to get rocked.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, of course not.
Punk and Reigns are fighting over the services of a scoundrel, notorious for betraying everyone he represents, as this guy cries and moans, torn between these two hunks, well, one hunk and CM Punk. Let's be real. And Rollins is hovering, circling, hungrily eyeing up the potent, dominant stench of homoerotic tension in the room. Oh yeah, look at how Rollins dresses. Listen to how he talks. Look at how he presents himself. This is what he wants. This is what he needs. Marrying someone who identifies as a man isn't always enough. Sometimes you need the real thing. And by you, I mean Rollins. And maybe you who is listening, I don't know what your preferences are. I just know I don't mean me, Mark.
I am not gay.
Punk is Dwight. Roman is Andy. And Heyman is Angela. And it's making everyone bar maybe Rollins look completely ridiculous. Punk finally gets his WrestleMania main event on night one of a 2-night extravaganza. Does that sound a little familiar to you?
If you think the grass is so green around the other side, leave. Main event night 4 of a buy one, get one free extravaganza.
No title, no Rumble win, and the match itself ultimately humiliates young Phillip Brooks. Heyman owed him a favor. Punk, of all the things he could have picked Heyman cornering him over Roman Reigns on the big night. Heyman, who infamously bashed Punk's brains in with a ladder at Money in the Bank 2013 and sent Brock Lesnar after him. Heyman, who clearly preferred the company of Roman Reigns on this year's road to WrestleMania. And Punk's big favor is having this betrayal addict, this WWE Benedict Arnold, this Judas, this Jane Fonda, cornering him in the closest he's ever come to his dream of closing out a WrestleMania. This feud is absurd and not in the fun way. If it wasn't for the fact that Punk and Reigns have some star power by modern standards, and Rollins is over enough to hang with them, this bizarre love square would have been laughed out of the building. So pretty much from the moment it became clear this whole angle revolved around Paul Heyman, people have been suggesting it'll end with Heyman siding with Rollins over his actual pals. You know that big shock that everyone can see coming a month away? The shocking swerve, that's right. That anyone, and I do mean anyone, who's watched wrestling for at least a fair while, will fully expect to happen. The real swerve would have been Heyman staying loyal to one of Punk or Reigns at the expense of the other. Maybe Heyman sticks with Reigns again, like he did with the Brock Lesnar feud, or the Solo Sikoa stuff last year. Alternatively, maybe he realizes he's tired of Roman Reigns not treating him all that well. He misses his buddy CM Punk. It's actually been nice cornering him at WrestleMania. He'd like Punk to succeed. He'd like to help him do it. But no. The swerve everyone saw coming a mile away came on. And it did. It did swerve. It swerved. Reigns and Punk look like absolute fools, taking Heyman's greasy fists directly into their gonads. In Reigns' case, Heyman's hand really stayed there for a while. It was a bit odd. Punk's dream, that he only got due to Heyman's contract meddling in kayfabe, has been shattered, just like his nads, by Heyman, who's replaced him with a shinier, somewhat younger, newer toy, who probably won't cruelly beat and berate him the way Reigns used to occasionally. His whole bout, in a sense, was essentially a humiliation ritual for CM Punk. His career-long dream reduced to a tainted quasi-main event on a two-night show, revolving around his manager, who makes him look like a complete buffoon. The closing visual is sad boy Punk, clearly exhausted, and his eye bags are basically camper vans under each one of his eyes, looking miserable and dejected, but also kind of pleased. He kissed the ring. You know, they all do that. They kiss the ring mat. Cody Rhodes does it all the time. Because at least he got to go on last, of the first half of the show at least. The closing stretch of his injury-prone career slowly but surely passing him by, as he's rendered a complete imbecile near the top of the card, courtesy of that man he refused to wrestle all the way back at WrestleMania 30. That last bit's outside of kayfabe, obviously.
And Vince was just like, this is the concussion talking. I can't believe you're saying any of this. You're in the main event. It is a main event. You're wrestling Triple H. And I turned to Hunter and I said, all due respect, I do not need to wrestle you. You need to wrestle me. I do not want to wrestle you.
Night 2. So I recently did a video roasting a women's triple threat bout from a few years ago at a WrestleMania. Needless to say, the women's triple threat bout at this year's Mania is not deserving of a roast. It was actually very good. A fast-paced opener that popped the crowd and kicked the second half of Commercial Mania off with a bang. Creatively, though, a triple threat here was an odd fit. On the main roster, the WWE, strangely, has never pulled the trigger on Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair in singles action against one another. The Women's Royal Rumble in 2021 seemingly teased the idea these two were meant to be the big two of their generation, and yet that singles match has still never materialized. When Belair won the Elimination Chamber back in February this year, with Rhea Ripley as the champ, and Royal Rumble winner Charlotte Flair over on SmackDown challenging Tiffany Stratton, it seemed like Triple Nose was finally pulling the trigger on this bad boy. Nope. You see, traditionally, not like that even matters at this point, of course, WrestleMania was a place to pull the trigger on those first-time, big-time singles matches. Not here, though. Io Sky moonsaulted her way into this becoming a triple threat. A second, awkwardly planted triple threat for the weekend. But in fairness, the other best match of the weekend, bar the men's triple threat, so there you go. But frankly, the build did little to help two-thirds of the talent involved. Rhea Ripley was presented as a sore loser, a smug bully who just couldn't accept she'd missed out on the chance to walk into WrestleMania as the champ. Bianca Belair, meanwhile, who, in kayfabe, was at least somewhat responsible for Ripley losing the gold, felt the wrath of the fans as the once fairly over babyface started getting booed hard. A meddlesome threat to Rhea Ripley and an intimidating powerhouse to the underdog Io Sky, Belair inadvertently became the de facto heel of a feud where all three frequently came off looking ridiculous in the build-up. Creatively, this angle did not hit the right notes. In the ring, though, the talent absolutely did. Unlike many more lazy triple threat bouts out there, these three cooked up a variety of neat three-way spots, including a very slick finish. Now, triple threats. Common criticism, and it's a valid one, is that time and again, two of the wrestlers will be wrestling in the ring, the other one's taking a nap on the outside. That did happen quite a lot in this bout, however the story of it actually made sense. You see, time and again in the build, Io Sky, despite being the champ, was treated like an afterthought. Belair and Ripley were constantly at each other's throats, just kind of batting Io Sky out of the way. Here they did that again, constantly beating on the woman, so the two of them could have their thing in the ring. It turned Io Sky into the clear-cut babyface of the match, leading to a huge pop when she pulled off the underdog win. And ultimately, with that in mind, despite Ripley and Belair typically being presented as the bigger stars, this was, funnily enough, the Io Sky show, providing the Queen of the Sky with a big, babyface showcase moment on the big show of the year. Whether that pays off long term is anyone's guess, but on the night, she was the crowd favourite, and the result was a big hit. The match very nicely worked. The finish, where she just squashes poor Bianca Belair with a moonsault right to the face when she had a pin on Rhea Ripley. Very neat, very clever. Yeah, really good stuff. So Randy Orton versus Kevin Owens was one of the better storylines heading into this show. The Kevin Owens nervous breakdown angle breathed new life into Owens as a character, as he completely tore apart his friendships with Cody Rhodes and Sami Zayn, leading to hard-hitting, big bumping grudge matches with both men earlier this year. His promos were strong, and despite jobbing a fair bit to Rhodes, he was fairly over as an unhinged menace. During that time, he'd also taken out Randy Orton, planting the seeds for a Mania showdown, and perhaps a spot where Owens would finally be put in his place, maybe after taking the old punt right to his dome. Unfortunately, frequently taking extremely dangerous bumps directly onto one's head and neck has consequences, funnily enough, and Owens was forced to pull out of the show due to his need for neck surgery. It's a shame when it happens, but this is a tough game. Some of these guys, like Owens, they put it all on the line out in the ring, these massive bumps to get their matches over. It doesn't end well. Wear and tear is no laughing matter. Randy Orton, one of the promotion's most recognizable talents, had a vacancy opposite him in the ring, and you don't just leave someone of Orton's name value off the show because his opponents had to bow out. Rumors abounded of who would replace Kevin Owens, with Rusev being a particular odds-on favorite. Other rumors included Malachi Black, or Aleister Black, I suppose he'll be called again now, Jeff Hardy, and of course Nick Aldis himself, the general manager Randy Orton assaults every couple of years with an RKO. Instead, we got Joe Hendry, the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. Look, for the actual guy, for the actual Joe Hendry outside of kayfabe, coming from humble beginnings in WCPW and the TNA Internet Championship scene to becoming the face of TNA and appearing here, huge stadium, in the WWE, big pop from the crowd, singing his song. It's a hell of a career journey and all that. And I'm sure, no doubt that beyond kayfabe, Joe Hendry was thrilled to have this big moment, and rightfully so. It's the kind of thing most people can only ever dream of at best. That being said, he was booked to lose to Randy Orton, which is fine. It's just that he lost to Randy Orton in a measly 3 minutes. Hendry might be fine with that, but TNA absolutely should not be. This guy is their world champion. He is their number one, their representative, wearing their belt, being announced with it in front of a monster crowd, and he just got soundly, swiftly demolished. Even the finish made him look like an absolute goof. He did his turn around to look at the camera. Orton immediately flattened him with an RKO. You could say that just having TNA get represented on a stage of this magnitude is a major deal for them, and something that has caused Vince McMahon to roll over in his grave, and he's not even dead yet. At a glance, yes, true, on the first part. At a second glance, TNA just got made to look like jobbers on the biggest stage they could. That's not an ideal ad. That's not the kind of promotion that convinces people to watch you. They just got jabronified at this show. In the good old days of the territories, this is heart attack material. One promotion's champ getting jabronified somewhere else is an unthinkable crime. You don't let it happen if you don't have to. TNA is in a partnership with the WWE. No one is kidding themselves. These entities are not equals. and this was basically a light-hearted showcase of that fact. TNA are clearly lacking on the pride front. Regular pride, thanks. Let's just put the rainbow flag down, smartass. And with WWE buying AAA and moving in on Pro Wrestling Noah, this is all starting to give off some serious Monopoly vibes. And no, not the board game. Oh my goodness, let's wrap this up. Bayley sucks. There, I said it. I've actually said it on this channel many times. I don't know why I'm carrying on like it's the first time anyone said it. You know what else sucks though? False advertising. Fans were promised Bayley and that bird lady versus Liv Morgan and that tall lady. Poor Bayley, who has worked very hard for the WWE for a long time now, including overcoming career-threatening injuries and the utter humiliation of whatever the hell that old hugger gimmick of hers was meant to be, got the Nathan Jones treatment this weekend, taken out and replaced. Oh well. Actually, Jones didn't get replaced, come to think of it. Undertaker just fought on his own at WrestleMania 19, and then Jones briefly helped him near the end before becoming the mentally handicapped son of Immortan Joe from time to time.
I had a baby brother. I had a little baby brother. And he was perfect. Perfect in every way.
Here, the unconscious Bayley didn't even get a quick appearance after the beatdown, with Becky Cringe, the worst right hand in the business, replacing her like it was nothing, and her and Bird Lady forming Team Irish and stuff to get the job done. If you want Becky Lynch on the show, fine. If the show is just too cool, and you need to heat it up and make it lame and annoying and geeky, okay, Becky Cringe is the one. But why do you have to do a loyal employee dirty to do that? False advertising is wrong, like when people bought Survivor Series 1999 to see Rock versus Austin versus Triple H, and Big Show replaced Austin mid-show. You wouldn't have known until you bought the pay-per-view it was happening. Or Survivor Series 2008 with Triple H versus Vladimir Kozlov, who they actually did try and push as a main event thing very briefly, versus Jeff Hardy, where Jeff Hardy, the guy people actually wanted to see, gets taken out off camera. Triple H and Kozlov have the dullest match of all time, like two 70s mid-carders randomly transplanted into a noughties WWE show, and then Edge randomly gets inserted for the win. It's not cool in any medium, just to be clear, not just wrestling. Like when Iron Man 3 was advertised as a serious, hard-hitting finale, with Ben Kingsley as Osama bin Mandarin, only for the actual film to be a goofy midlife crisis comedy. And Ben Kingsley's actually just a drugged-out failed actor who did Shakespeare and Croydon, which for anyone who doesn't know London well, let's just put it politely, Croydon is far, far away from the bright lights of the West End. Disgraceful! I felt ripped off in that cinema on that day. It still annoys me all these years later. Anyways, the next night on Raw, Oim Man and Birdie Lady lost the belts back to Liv Morgan and Big Mammy Uncool. And then Becky Cringe pulled a Big Show with a random heel turn. They actually ran this feud in NXT, both as babyfaces though. Becky Cringe versus Bird Lady. No one cared. Expect that to remain largely the same on the main roster unless Bird Lady finally develops the charisma needed to support her relatively solid babyface work between the ropes. Basically, this was all a wedged-in, rushed mess to set up a feud where Becky Hogan can give someone the rub, trademark, like when she completely buried Bianca Belair for months, but it was all actually the rub, trademark, because Belair wound up winning the feud, eventually, after looking like an idiot for 6 odd months. Anyways, who cares about that? I don't. Do you? No. Of course you don't. Let's skip ahead to the most important part of the show. The biggest match and angle of the whole weekend, which is really saying something. John Cena versus Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes is the leading babyface of the WWE. Heading into WrestleMania 41, he's been the champ for over a year. Many people love him. They love the old-fashioned, lovable cheese of a hard-working patriot who wears his heart on his sleeve, or is that neck? Others see him as corny, with overly forced sentimentality to try and garner fan sympathy, a relatively soft persona and style, and a manufactured push that barely suits his presence, or presentation. You can think either, you can think neither. The point here is Rhodes, much like Roman Reigns or John Cena before him, is a love him or hate him kind of leading star. Last year, ratings on SmackDown with Cody Rhodes at the helm plummeted. That whole Fox thing, it's over. It's not necessarily completely Cody Rhodes' fault, of course. There are a lot of other issues to consider. But it is worth noting that, technically, he is one of the lowest drawing champs in recent memory in this regard. John Cena, who is fairly well liked as a nostalgia act these days, was turned heel in a bid, presumably, to avoid splitting the crowd down the middle. Obviously, it's leaked out that Cody Rhodes was initially pitched to turn heel. The Rock wanted him to turn heel. That didn't pan out, so now we get John Cena instead. Either way, you were never getting a babyface versus babyface match with these two. Elimination Chamber. John Cena wins the chamber, and then puts a serious beatdown on Cody Rhodes, aligning with the Rock to form, seemingly, a Hollywood heel takeover faction. Who could be the third man? It was Travis Scott. Yeah, Travis Scott. A Spike Dudley-sized auto-tune enthusiast. He was also there. He was great, yeah. John Cena went full Bub Backlund in 1994 on the road to WrestleMania, burying the hypocrisy of wrestling fans and modern sports entertainment, letting loose his frustrations that he'd kept pent up for years as people chanted, "Let's go Cena, Cena sucks." The character was an interesting case of subverting expectations, as an angry Cena leaned hard into fan criticism of him over the years, gloating about burying talent and adamantly refusing to change his persona and style no matter what. And him and the Roadster, they knocked out 4 segments that followed the same beats and points on repeat, just with a little more back and forth between them each time. Cena trashes the fans, his smile's gone, he doesn't like wrestling anymore. Cody Rhodes tells him off for it. These guys are over enough and they have enough charisma between them that the segments were very engaging, but the laziness of it didn't help, nor did the fact that Cena was clearly right. Fans are insanely, almost comically fickle. On the go-home SmackDown, fans randomly booed the American Nightmare just to prove Cena's point, and in fairness to Rhodes, he managed to turn it around, but all the same, is Cena really a villain for pointing out the topsy-turvy, indecisive nature of the Sheep? And all the while this is going on, while Cena's heel persona is well established, his alliance with The Rock is not elaborated on. In fact, Hollywood Dwayne just about gets the Benoit treatment, with everyone largely pretending he had nothing to do with the angle. Surely he'd at least turn up for WrestleMania though, right? No. TV this year, in wrestling, not in general, has revolved around the ever-changing schedule of Dwayne Johnson. From retconning his potential feuds with Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes back in January, to re-retconning a new feud with Cody Rhodes, where The Rock was Satan himself, and Rhodes was on his casting couch, considering spreading those cheeks for the big boy paychecks and fame. Johnson would flip between heel and face minute to minute on the mic, cracking just appalling jokes, if you can even call them that, before caressing Rhodes' face and making the moves on the guy. When Rhodes stuck to his guns, Rock revealed that Cena was the new Rock's Bottom.
I guess that gives a whole new meaning to the term rock bottom. Now, doesn't it? Doesn't it, John?
Now, many, including yours truly, kept expecting some semblance of explanation for the John Cena The Rock alliance. Some kind of promo with the pair, which would be interesting. Imagine that, the two of them sharing the ring as allies. Or maybe just a Rock appearance to cost Rhodes the belt at WrestleMania. We got none of that. And their promos together, Cena and Rhodes, while well delivered, zeroed in on a recurring problem in modern wrestling, where the script allegedly gets thrown out the window. It's all very dramatic, as talents try and convince fans this is real, hard-hitting stuff, by quasi-admitting the general fakery of wrestling to begin with. Cena, and particularly Rhodes, were guilty of this throughout the build to their match, bringing up everything from backstage friendships completely out of kayfabe to Hulk Hogan burying Sting backstage for not having a good enough tan ahead of Starrcade 1997. A simpler version of the jaded former hero coming back to jealously take down his replacement would have been far neater and kayfabe friendly than the worked shoot rants WWE and many promotions in general love blending into their angles these days. No ruck, no Hollywood backdoor shenanigans. Just imagine that John Cena, his career's nearly over, he wants to break that record. To hell with you fans and this company, I'm taking that record whether you like it or not. Sometimes less is more. Over the course of slightly over 20 minutes, John Cena and Cody Rhodes meandered through a very plodding match. Cena's approach to working heel in the ring is apparently to go at a snail's pace, with the look of a man who'd rather be anywhere but in that ring. The facial expression I can understand, but sometimes you do have to be entertaining, heel or not. For a guy who used to do such big deal main events, this was painful to sit through. He's even admitted in interviews he's slowing down physically, but this was something else. Cody Rhodes randomly cosplayed as Skeletor before the match. He looked terrible, frankly. And he largely looked like a fool in the match too, beyond completely burying Cena's AA finisher by kicking out of 4 of them. Once again, at what point do finishers stop being finishers? I understand those big near falls get a big pop when done well, but overusing them ultimately strips away the impact of the performers in question's signature moves, whilst conditioning fans to expect a kick out. The match, for a battle of generational titans, so to speak, just felt a bit flat. Take it back to WrestleMania 18. Babyface Ruck wrestles heel old Hulk Hogan. Hogan could barely move, even back then. Moves-wise, it's an incredibly basic, low-impact bout. In terms of storytelling, character work, psychology, and crowd investment, though, it's one of the greatest matches, greatest spectacles in professional wrestling history. 10 years later, The Ruck, now the older guy, not a heel though, and John Cena, both babyfaces, ran a similar setup. Again, not a technical classic as such, but a slick, well-worked bout that tells an interesting story of The Ruck weathering John Cena's powerful storm and ultimately outwitting his overzealous, overconfident opponent to hand him an embarrassing, frustrating loss. Those both felt like big deal, big spectacle, the battle of generations kind of deals. Here it should have, but it just didn't, and just when it was heating up a little bit, music hits. The Ruck? No. Maybe, oh hey, maybe someone The Ruck sends in to help John Cena. A triangle of terror with Ruck, Cena, and Rollins, baby. Imagine that. Rollins, the guy who sacrificed himself to save Rhodes last year, selling out like the scumbag he clearly is. The Heyman betrayal night 1 and then shafting poor Cody the night 2. Swerve angles like that can be silly, but then, to be fair, this would have probably gotten a lot of heat and been fairly interesting to see unfold. Alternatively, maybe Ruck just pays off a mercenary to run in and cause trouble. Could be someone like a Drew McIntyre, a Braun Breaker, even a returning Rusev, all guys who can play that kind of thing convincingly. But no. We get Travis Scott again. I think I've heard one Travis Scott song in my lifetime. I couldn't tell you what it was called. It was the song that plays over the end credits of Tenet. John David Washington is looking out from that car window. Robert Pattinson's narrating something about secret bums. Cut to black. Travis Scott's song kicks in. I'm aware he's got a big fan following, but very few wrestling fans seem to enjoy his Elimination Chamber appearance. Here, he takes 10 years to make it to the ring. He's so damn skinny and short that his weird fan belt looks bigger than him. He makes Cody Rhodes look like a white Omas when they come face to face, and now a random rapper, singer, whatever he is tainting the main event of WrestleMania, after already stumbling on in to the biggest heel turn of the decade thus far back in February. Off the back of Travis Scott nonsense, Cena beats Cody Rhodes in one of the blandest, driest Mania main events in recent memory. That's the show, there you go. I'm keeping this to just the bigger matches and moments across both nights because this is a long enough video as is, and I refuse to ever talk about what happened when AJ met Logan. Never. As far as I'm aware, none of that ever happened, and I don't want to be discussed in the comments section either. There was no match, unfortunately. AJ Styles was busy this year, and Logan Paul was too, but that wasn't unfortunate. Overall, Something Vince McMahon and the infamous Kevin Dunn, among others, captured that Triple Nose and TKO just don't, is that big event feel. Many a WrestleMania in the Vince days had a timeless, big fight event feel to them, with even backstage segments providing colourful, memorable, often very silly moments for fans to remember on top of the big matches, angles and payoffs they bought tickets or bought the pay-per-view for. Under Triple Nose and company, even when the cards feel like a big deal on paper, like last year for example, not so much this year, everything just trundles along like a big bright procession. It's all oddly sterile, and it lacks the timeless aesthetic many older manias enjoyed, because it's drowning in commercials, logos, and all manner of quick and cheeky ad revenue. In the Vinnie Mac days, it was rare to just be relentlessly bashed over the head with relentless commercials during a WrestleMania. There were always a lot of ads, sure, but not to this level, and not while victorious champs were still celebrating their victories. Good grief. You didn't have wrestlers worshipping Vince McMahon for a paycheck outside of kayfabe either. I mean, you did a bit, but not nearly to the extent we're about to discuss. Plenty of guys were suck-ups to him, obviously. But did any wrestler ever wear photos of him with their kid to something? Did anyone ever have photos of Vince McMahon turned into clothing? Well, Johnny Generic and Candice LeNopup actually did that with Triple Nose this weekend. What the hell is that? There has been a kiss-ass, right? There has been a sycophant. There is trying to move up the ladder by being the boss's buddy. And then there's just being a weirdo. McMahon had kiss-asses. Triple H has people treating him like the all-important prophet of a new religious movement. The whole atmosphere of the Hall of Fame this year had this creepy worship vibe to it. Only where Triple H was concerned, just to be clear. And then you had CM Punk trying to be a virtue-signaling do-gooder hero, saying the women's triple threat should have been the main event instead of his romance triple threat with Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. What an ungrateful jerk. Frankly, I'm not even convinced he was worthy of the participation trophy main event they gave him, if that's his attitude. The Punk man trying to get over with the simps for some reason. And then, of course, beyond that, there is the total lack of respect for kayfabe. Again, yeah, it's fake. We all know it's fake, genius. But they're performers. They are playing characters and they are telling stories. There really needs to be some commitment. From Triple H discussing booking, openly, on WWE's YouTube channel no less, to Jey Uso blabbering on about Jimmy Uso agreeing to that beatdown angle. Next to no one was even trying to maintain a hint of a fun crack at suspension of disbelief for the weekend. And then there was the stage, which, to be clear, actually looked good. But there was a slight problem here and there. It did not do anyone any favours on their entrances, particularly Hendry and John Cena, both on night 2. You could visibly see Hendry standing there before his music hit, due to how the entranceway on the ramp was laid out and opening up too soon. And then some random crew member was faffing around to the side during John Cena's entrance. Talk about sloppy shucking. It's very minor criticism, though, I'll be honest. It really doesn't mean that much at all. And for those who will point out, they'll say, hey, you might not have liked the builds to this year's show. Maybe the stories didn't do it for you, or you didn't think any of the matches were top tier. But it was a record-setting event, hater. Well, for those of you who will point out that, you'll point out that the records this event probably set prove it's a success. Quick point. A big part of the financial records the WWE have been setting of late does not actually stem from general worldwide audience interest. It stems from the exorbitant prices for tickets. Something that's clearly beginning to grate on even the most loyal of fans, as Mania 41 was called out and mucked across the board for absurd overcharging when it comes to seats. Whether it's up the back, down the front, or next to Hulk Hogan telling you he taught Vince McMahon how to book, you were getting fleeced. In the days since as well, Dwayne Johnson has come out of hibernation and has revealed inadvertently that he has CTE. Or at least I assume that's the explanation for the babbling incoherent mess that was his recent appearance on the Pat McAfee show. To sum it up very quickly, Johnson wiped his ass with the Mania booking, as if many of the Cena Rhodes booking issues weren't specifically to do with the inconsistency surrounding the Ruck's involvement in it. He also was kind enough to frequently remind us wrestling is faker than the moon landing. Johnson basically took credit for everything good in the WWE, whilst blaming all the trash on the lame Triple H. Almost like he's deliberately trying to make the game look bad. I don't know. Replace him with his own people, maybe? One look at the general Netflix ratings, week to week, shows the buzz and general interest of the early portion of the Paul Levesque era is waning hard right now. And between the dismal attitudes and presentation beyond the ring, as well as the generally wishy-washy, samey booking, including both nights, ending with heels, winning off the back of low blows and interference, it doesn't take a critic to see this. It just takes the average fan.